Leonardo da Vinci. When you hear this name, what comes to your mind? Perhaps the mysterious smile of the Mona Lisa, or the dramatic scene of the Last Supper. Maybe you think of flying machines, anatomy sketches, and notebooks full of inventions that were hundreds of years ahead of their time. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a painter, not just an inventor, not just a scientist. He was all of these things and more. He was the true definition of a Renaissance man, someone whose curiosity and genius had no limits. Born in Italy in 1452, Leonardo lived in a time when Europe was waking up from the darkness of the Middle Ages into an age of art, science, and human discovery. But even in that golden age, he stood out like a bright star. People say there has never been another mind quite like his. He was an artist who saw beauty in everything. He was a scientist who wanted to understand how the world worked. He was an inventor who dreamed of machines that could fly, dive underwater, and build the future. And he combined all of these gifts with an endless sense of wonder. What made Leonardo so special was not just his talent, but his deep desire to learn. He never went to a university, but he studied life itself. He watched the way birds flew, the way water moved, and the way muscles pulled the human body into action. He drew what he saw, wrote down his ideas, and filled thousands of pages with thoughts that were far ahead of his time. Even today, scientists and engineers study his notebooks to find inspiration. But Leonardo was also a mystery. Despite being one of the most brilliant men in history, he often left his projects unfinished, distracted by the next idea in his mind. He wrote backwards in his notebooks, using mirror writing that only he could read easily. Some say he did this to keep his ideas secret. Others say it was simply his way. He never married and lived a life dedicated to his work, art, and thoughts. Leonardo da Vinci's life story is more than just history. It is a powerful reminder of what is possible when we open our minds to curiosity. He once said, "Learning never exhausts the mind." His life proves that greatness comes not only from talent, but from the desire to keep learning every single day. Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15, 1452, in a small village called Vinci, near Florence, Italy. His full name was Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci, which simply means, Leonardo, son of Piero, from Vinci. He was born out of wedlock, the son of a respected notary named Piero da Vinci and a young peasant woman named Caterina. Because his parents never married, Leonardo grew up with his father's family, but his mother also remained close during his childhood. As a boy, Leonardo loved nature more than anything else. He would spend hours walking in the forests and hills near his home, watching how birds flew, how water flowed over rocks, and how plants grew towards the sun. He was curious about everything. Why does the sky change colors at sunset? How do birds stay in the air? Why does the human body move the way it does? For Leonardo, life was an endless collection of beautiful mysteries waiting to be explored. Unlike many children of noble families, Leonardo did not go to a formal school. Instead, he received basic reading, writing, and math lessons at home. But what he lacked in formal education, he made up for with his powerful sense of observation and imagination. He would fill pages with drawings of animals, landscapes, and people around him. His sketches showed details that adults could not even see. When Leonardo was about 14 years old, his father noticed his talent for drawing and took him to Florence, the center of art and culture in Italy. There, he became an apprentice to Andrea del Verrocchio, one of the most respected artists of that time. In Verrocchio's workshop, Leonardo learned painting, sculpture, metalworking, carpentry, and mechanical arts. He learned how to mix colors, prepare canvases, carve statues, and design architectural structures. It was in this workshop that Leonardo's skills began to bloom. He quickly became known for his ability to paint with incredible realism and detail. There is a famous story that when Verrocchio saw Leonardo's work on an angel in his painting, The Baptism of Christ, he realized Leonardo's talent was greater than his own and decided never to paint again. Whether this story is true or not, it shows how people saw Leonardo even as a teenager, as someone with a gift that only comes once in many generations. But Leonardo was not just interested in art. During his apprenticeship, he also started studying the human body. He wanted to understand how muscles worked, how bones moved, and how the body balanced itself. This was the beginning of his lifelong passion for anatomy, a passion that would later lead him to perform detailed dissections and create drawings so accurate that modern doctors still admire them today. By the time he finished his apprenticeship, Leonardo was no longer just a young artist from Vinci. He was becoming a man whose curiosity had no limits. He was ready to start his journey, not only as an artist but as an inventor, scientist, engineer, and thinker who would change the world forever. Leonardo da Vinci's art is known all over the world. Even people who know nothing about history or painting have heard of the Mona Lisa. But what makes his art so special? Why does it continue to fascinate us even after 500 years? After finishing his apprenticeship in Florence, Leonardo began working as an independent artist. His paintings were different from anyone else's. While other artists focused only on beauty or religious themes, Leonardo combined beauty with science. He studied how light fell on faces, how shadows formed under noses and chins, how eyes reflected emotion, and how smiles curved slightly to create mystery. His most famous painting, the Mona Lisa, is the perfect example of this. Painted between 1503 and 1506, it shows a woman with a gentle smile that seems to change when you look at her from different angles. Is she happy? Sad? Thinking about something secret? No one knows for sure. Leonardo used a technique called sfumato, where colors and edges blend softly without hard lines, to create lifelike softness in her face. Her eyes follow you wherever you stand. Her smile seems to hide 1,000 secrets. That's why people stand in front of her for hours in the Louvre Museum in Paris, trying to understand what makes her so powerful. Another masterpiece is The Last Supper, painted on the wall of a monastery in Milan. Unlike traditional paintings of this scene, Leonardo captured the exact moment Jesus told his disciples, "One of you will betray me." Each disciple shows a different reaction: shock, sadness, anger, confusion. The painting is like a frozen movie scene full of emotion, movement, and story. Sadly, because of the experimental technique Leonardo used, much of the painting has faded over time, but restoration work keeps bringing back its beauty. Leonardo also painted Virgin of the Rocks, Lady with an Ermine, and many other works that showed his genius. But for him, painting was not just art. It was a science. He said, "Painting is a mental thing. It is a combination of knowledge and imagination." He dissected human bodies to understand muscles and bones, so he could paint them with perfect realism. He studied how water moved, how light entered the eye, and how perspective changed shapes, so his paintings would look three-dimensional and alive. But Leonardo did not paint as many works as other artists. This was not because he was lazy, but because he was a perfectionist. He often left paintings unfinished, endlessly improving small details until he was satisfied. For him, every painting was a journey to understand life itself. His art teaches us an important lesson: greatness comes from observing deeply and understanding what others ignore. Leonardo looked at the world with curious eyes, and through his paintings, he showed us that beauty is everywhere, in a simple smile, in the way light falls on a cheek, in the hidden emotions of the human soul. While many people know Leonardo da Vinci as a painter, his mind was far greater than just art. Leonardo was fascinated by everything in the world: how it worked, why it worked, and how it could be improved. His notebooks, filled with thousands of pages of drawings, ideas, and observations, show us the depth of his genius. They are like looking into the mind of a person who lived 500 years ahead of his time. Leonardo was obsessed with flight. He would watch birds for hours, studying how they opened their wings, how the wind lifted them, and how they turned in the sky. Inspired by them, he drew designs for flying machines, including an ornithopter, a machine with flapping wings, and an early concept of a helicopter. Of course, the technology of his time could not build these inventions, but his ideas laid the foundation for future generations. He also designed war machines for his patrons. There were sketches of tanks with rotating cannons, giant crossbows, and even multi-barrel guns. But Leonardo was not a violent man. Many historians believe he drew these to impress his sponsors and gain their protection, but his heart was always in understanding nature rather than building weapons. Another area where Leonardo's genius shone brightly was anatomy. He wanted to understand the human body in every detail. He dissected corpses, which was not allowed for ordinary people at that time, and drew muscles, bones, organs, and nerves with incredible accuracy. His anatomical sketches look like they were drawn by modern doctors. They showed the flow of blood in the heart, the structure of the brain, and even the position of a baby inside a mother's womb. Sadly, these drawings were never published during his life, and the world only discovered them hundreds of years later. Leonardo was also interested in engineering and architecture. He drew designs for bridges that could support heavy loads with minimum materials. He planned canals to connect cities and improve transportation. He studied the movement of water and drew detailed maps of rivers, imagining how they could be redirected to protect cities from flooding. But what makes Leonardo's scientific studies so unique is that they were connected to his art. When he studied anatomy, it helped him paint the human body realistically. When he studied light and shadow, it made his paintings look three-dimensional. When he studied water and air, it inspired his inventions. For Leonardo, everything was connected: science, art, nature, and life itself. One of his famous quotes is, "Learning never exhausts the mind." Even though he never went to university, he was a true scientist, curious, observant, and always asking why. He never stopped learning, and his notebooks remain a treasure of ideas that continue to inspire scientists, engineers, artists, and thinkers even today. Leonardo's inventions and studies teach us that knowledge has no limits. If you keep your mind open, if you observe deeply, and if you stay curious about the world, there is no end to what you can learn and create. When we look back at the life of Leonardo da Vinci, we see a man who was much more than an artist or an inventor. He was a thinker, a dreamer, and a student of life itself. Even though he lived over 500 years ago, his ideas continue to influence our world today. But what can we learn from his life? First, Leonardo teaches us the power of curiosity. He was endlessly curious about everything, from the way birds flew to how the human heart pumped blood, from how water flowed in rivers to how light created shadows. He never accepted things as they were. He always asked, "Why does it work this way? How can I understand it better?" This curiosity opened his mind to endless possibilities. If you want to live a meaningful life, keep asking questions. Curiosity will keep your mind alive and your heart excited. Second, Leonardo's life reminds us that learning has no limits. Even though he had little formal education, he taught himself everything he wanted to know. He observed, experimented, drew, and wrote his thoughts. Today, we have the internet, books, and courses everywhere, but many people never use them fully. Leonardo used only his eyes, his mind, and his courage to explore the world, and he became a genius. Imagine what you can achieve if you start learning with his passion. Third, he teaches us that art and science are not separate. Many people think creativity and logic are different skills. But Leonardo used science to improve his art, and art to express his scientific understanding. He saw that beauty and knowledge come together to create greatness. So, don't limit yourself to only one field. Explore many things. You might discover connections no one else can see. Fourth, his life shows us that perfection is not always the goal. Leonardo left many of his works unfinished. He was always moving on to the next idea, the next dream, the next question. Some people criticized him for not completing everything, but it was his endless desire to discover more that made him who he was. Sometimes, it is better to explore widely than to stay stuck trying to perfect one thing forever. Finally, Leonardo da Vinci's life teaches us about seeing beauty in everything. He found beauty in the muscles of the human body, in the wings of a bird, in the flow of water, and in the mysterious smile of a woman. His eyes were open to the miracles of life all around him. Today, in our busy world, we often forget to look closely. We miss the small wonders that can inspire us. Leonardo reminds us to slow down, observe deeply, and find inspiration everywhere. As you finish listening to his story today, remember his words: simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Live simply, stay curious, learn everything you can, and never lose your sense of wonder. Because like Leonardo, you too have the power to create, to inspire, and to leave a legacy that will live on long after you are gone.